see now. So, welcome to Drama and Theatre Studies at NUI Galway. And I wish I could stand in the hall as usual and say hello, but while we are reducing the chances for contacts because it is winter and a bit of a tricky time, all our classes are still going. And throughout a lot of COVID, drama was in the loophole for performance-based classes. So some of our classes can be done online as seminars, but some practice classes, particularly around acting and performance, it's better to have people in a room. So with social distancing, with masks, with ventilation, we were able to keep some classes going. So we've never actually stopped. And what we have done is learned how to work with cameras a lot more and how to film performance and to kind of increase the skill set and adapt. Because we're just in a changing environment. And so it's been an interesting time, and I won't lie, it's been stressful at times, but we have learned new techniques and new skills, and we've never stopped making work. And I think core to a lot of our programs is that you're able to make work at the end of it, and it wouldn't be just a purely theoretical course. So what I'd like to do today is discuss who we are, give an overview of the programs and the structures, the facilities, the alumni network, and make sure we've time for questions as well. So who we are, we locate the study of theatre performance in broad international contexts and use critical perspectives to explore issues of global importance. So that's a very long way of saying we look at local things, we look at regional drama, we look at national theatre, we look at international theatre. And through that, we get a sense of why we are involved in theatre as an art form from thousands of years ago to the present day. And for all the challenges that are out there, whether it's a crisis in Arts Council funding or whether it's the latest pandemic, and we have to remember this is the latest, theatre just stays with us. It just won't go away regardless of how many challenges confront it. So there's something human in the need to tell stories, and it's kind of a bug, and once it's in you, it's very hard to get rid of it, and most people can't get rid of it. So we like to offer different ways of studying it and look at stories that are very local and personal, as well as sort of kind of canonical works that have existed for a long time, and try and get that balance in how and why people tell stories at different points in time. In our particular department in NUIG, there's 4 values which sort of shape how we have constructed the MA programs and the study as a whole. And these are first, that theory and practice always inform each other. So on each of our MA pathways, you would study a bit of the history of theatre, you would study some critical frameworks, but you will then implement those through different projects, through productions, through internships. So there's very much a focus on how theory and practice work together. Like there's no point going into a workshop or trying to create a piece of work if you don't know why you're doing it, if you don't know what your influences are, if you don't know what you're trying to say or how it might build to another project afterwards, then you're just sort of floating around feeling unsure and feeling a bit anxious. You need to know why you're making the work. So that's why we have a focus on kind of critical methods, learning about design and scenography, learning about different styles of performance, learning about different ways to engage your audience, learning about theatre in live physical settings and increasingly digital modes of storytelling as well, and these emerging hybrid models of performance on screen, which is not film, but clearly has a relationship to film. So theory and practice inform each other, and throughout the course you would expect both. Now some programs will lean more towards the theory and the history and the study of plays, and some lean more to how you stage those plays, how you get work made, how you get work produced, how you perform and work yourself. And so depending on what your interest is, you would then pick which pathway essentially suits you best. Here's a few samples of productions from recent past. So one there at the bottom, Nuchtaha, and we produced that during lockdown this spring. And it was students created their own devised performance work in response to testimonies from the Tuam Oral History Project. That was then filmed and edited, and we brought in a professional cinematographer and editor to do that. And then it premiered at the Balpana Festival in May 2021. And then in the Liverpool Irish Festival, that's just concluded in the UK this October. And then next year, it should be in a US festival as well, but I can't say too much about that now. So the work we do, I mean, it's student-led and it's created by students, but there is the link to the professional sector. And we certainly would encourage our students to say, well, how can you reach more people with your work? How can you build on the work? To understand how audiences are different in different places. Also, you have more productions there in our theatre space devised by students in relation to different research projects staff would be involved in. One there is about active consent, a partnership between drama and psychology. And then we stage sort of classical canonical works as well. There's a production there by Dario Fo, and there's Electra, a classical Greek play. So we do the kind of historical stuff and the canonical stuff, but then we encourage students and work with students to create their own work as well, which we think is really important. Our teaching is inspired by the model of the ensemble. Absolutely. No theatre artist is an island. It's so hard to make work by yourself. And you might have a very strong voice. You might be a playwright. You might know you're a director. You might know you're a performer. And you might be more of those things. You might be two of those things at the same time, which is very, very common. We really talk of theatre makers and theatre artists. Very often skill sets are more than director, producer, performer. They're more than these. Usually if you're any of these, you're a researcher first and foremost, but you always have to work with the team. You'll need someone to do your lighting. You need someone to do stage management. You need to work with multiple performers. Usually if there's more than one performer in a play, sometimes you might want to co-write or co-author things. And if you're devising work, that would certainly usually be collaborative. So we have a module on ensemble performance. It's sort of fundamental to our belief system and how theatre works. And that's not to take away from your individual voice or to say that there aren't projects you can do independently, but it is to say that we believe collaboration is important and essential. And we believe that's a really big skill that has to be honed and nurtured. And it's not easy. You know, people are so annoying and working with people is hard. But there's structures you can put in place to make that collaboration and that process more efficient and more successful. And so we would look at that in how we teach our programs, very much so. It would be quite a big thing. We believe that theatre is important. It might seem silly to have to state that, but I think it is important to state it. Obviously, the arts are really, you know, entertaining. It's what you do with your time. At the weekend, a lot of the time, you might be the Christmas show you go to see with your family. But the arts aren't entertainment in isolation. And really this idea that theatre or film or the arts are for entertainment only, I mean, that sort of only emerged from, you know, mid-20th century, the rise of Hollywood, modernity, and all of that, this idea that the arts are entertainment and separate from labour. Arts are part of society and always have been. They're part of education. They're part of how we communicate. They're part of culture. And they're part of how we tell stories and create a sense of self and identity for communities. And they're very important to the more, you know, creative aspects of business, such as marketing and communications as well. And increasingly they're important at all levels of education in terms of helping people come together and learn about how to work together as a team, as an ensemble, as I just discussed. So it's something that we take very seriously, and it's something we would advocate for quite a lot. And theatre is wonderful as a form of entertainment, but it's historically been a social meeting point, a political tool, a place of aesthetic experimentation and innovation. And so we try and come at theatre from all those different sides. Here again, you can see the launch of the Active Consent Project, which I mentioned there with the drama and psychology students, so being launched in the Department of Education with the former Minister for Higher Education. And the next picture you can see is Gender Count. So that was the first ever report into gender equality in Irish theatre. It was commissioned by Waking the Feminists and sponsored by the Arts Council. And the majority of researchers involved were MA or PhD students with us. And so that was the first ever report into gender equality in Irish theatre, absolutely groundbreaking, and has changed the industry fundamentally and has had, a really wide-reaching effect around the world. So we're very proud of that. And then the final picture there, some more faces you might recognize, that would be the Fine Gael Parliamentary Party stopped by to do some workshops with us. I think it was part of one of their think-ins, and just around team building, imagination, collaboration, all the skills that we teach that are centered to our programs and to our work in theatre. And so we ran a few workshops for them as part of their own kind of team building and development. And I think they had quite a good time with us. Partnership is key to our activities. So it is great to have a drama centre, to have a state-of-the-art theatre building. We have those things, and that's wonderful. But we don't work alone in a university campus, shut off from the wider world of theatre. That wouldn't be a healthy thing. We like to be very much involved in the theatre community in Galway, but also further afield. So we have partnerships, former partnerships with the Abbey Theatre, the National Theatre, obviously based in Dublin. We digitise their archive, and so we have over 1.8 million items archived from the digital archive, making it the largest digital theatre archive in the world. And as part of that partnership, we also attend all the shows. Sometimes we've guest lectures with people working at the Abbey, and we also send MA students for internships at the Abbey. Then we have a very important partnership with Druid, which we've actually called the Druid Academy, to highlight how integrated they are into the programme. So of course, the founders of Druid were actually students at NUI Galway in the 70s, Gary Hines and Marie Mullen, both who won Tony Awards for Martin McDonagh's The Beauty Queen of Lanam back in the 90s. And so as MA students, you get masterclasses with the Druid ensemble, because they work as an ensemble as well. So there'd be a directing masterclass with Gary Hines. There's usually a lighting and sound masterclass with whichever lighting or sound director they're working with in production at that time. There'll be a performance masterclass from someone in the ensemble. It could be Aaron Monaghan, it could be various people. There could be a casting workshop. We've had Maureen Hughes in to do casting workshops, and also publicity and marketing workshops as well. And we do a speaker series with the Druid for MA students throughout the academic year, so that you're constantly getting that up-to-date engagement with people who are working at the forefront of the theatre industry globally. Because while Druid is based in Galway and very much focused on the Irish canon, they also tour internationally at all the big centres, whether it's in London or New York or Washington. And so then we also place our students on internships with the Druid Company, which very often turns into employment. I think their past few marketing managers have been former students with us. So that's a really important relationship, and we value it very much. In the centre there, you can see an image, and that's about the Galway International Arts Festival. So this is a really exciting partnership where during the summer, you can apply to become part of the selected programme. And if successful, and it's usually for MA students only, if successful, you get to see everything in the Arts Festival for free, all the concerts, all the plays, the lot. And then this is followed up with, oh, sorry, does someone have a question there? Oh no, well, you can ask a question if you want to. Then this is followed up with masterclasses with the people creating the work who are in Galway in July. So that's another really important partnership. And of course, students are encouraged to volunteer or to work on internship with them as well. So it's, it's kind of a highlight of the year. And you can also see North Star Theatre Company there in Chicago. So we've sent students over working as an internship in Chicago. And then of course, there's the Abbey, which I've talked about. Now we've other partners as well. But I just wanted to highlight some of, I suppose, the really big partnerships that shape the actual MA programs we run, where you would have very direct contact with them. Because I think if you're coming to do a master's, you are thinking about work and about how you're going to get work or move into employment and develop your career. And access to those networks is just really important, for being honest. Another core value, research, practice, and industry are connected. So we see it all as an ecology. If you do an MA program here, it's not just research, it's not just practice. It's about how everything connects. So your research informs your practice, Your practice then will inform your research. And very often this can lead to careers in teaching, it can lead to careers in marketing, and of course it leads to careers in theatre and film and the arts more widely. And so these are all brought together in our programs and how we encourage you to think about yourself and where you're going in your study of theatre. Because again, if you're coming back to do an MA in theatre, it is a big commitment. You've made a choice, you obviously have that instinct. And you want to see how it can become part of your life and in a formal capacity, in a way that you can do it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, a little more about us, who'd be teaching you. And so we all write books and we all direct and produce plays as well. So we're involved in research and practice. And I suppose that's why we're so motivated to make sure the programs are about that balance between research and practice. And then we're also essentially educators, right? Because we work as lecturers. And so the expertise ranges from feminist theatre and performance, experimental performance, theatre and social media, performance, migration and interculturalism, and all sorts. And so the case studies we look at, sometimes they're Irish, sometimes they're international, but I suppose they respond to big themes and questions. And so we'd be very active in that field and very much work with our students as well. And I would have co-authored a few publications with former PhD students as well. So some of our master's students then go on to do PhDs, and then we work with them as they try and balance, you know, their career as theatre artists, but also potentially their careers as educators and lecturers themselves. Here's a few more examples of staff productions and projects. So you can see there Dúna Mantri Hinna. So that was co-directed by Marianne Nicheneda, who's a lecturer with us and also head of production and events. And she's curator of the Arts in Action series as well. So she would have co-directed that down in the Taibhneach Theatre, and that was programmed in the Galway International Arts Festival. She would also be involved in Gary Onagira, a program of Irish language theatre works. Then you can see a picture of the amazing Leila Doolan, who was at the centre of season 1, Mad, Bad and Dangerous, a celebration of difficult women. So this was a web series of interviews produced by Emma O'Grady, who is a former MA student with us. And she approached us and said she'd like to do this project. She needed some support with research and production. And so I came on board and started working for the former MA student, which is how it should be. And this documentary series came into being, and we've recently won funding to produce season 2. So we're just going to production now with that. And below, again, the previous projects I've mentioned, that is a picture of a film created by Dr. Charlotte McIver as part of the Active Consent Project and the relationship between drama and psychology. And again, a picture of the Tune Mother and Baby Home as part of the project that I work on with history, a collaboration between drama and history studies here. So lots of different types of productions, theatre productions, bilingual productions, screen productions, and we're very open to the type of work we're involved in, as long as it's a good story, as long as it's worth telling. That's what we want to be involved in. And our MA students are at the centre of that and very much invite us in. And we're lucky to have them. Archives, we would be world leaders in terms of theatre archives. And a lot of the time people who come to us say, well, really, I want to make work. I want to be a director, I want to be a performer. Absolutely, but the archives will help you do that. They hold sort of the gems of how we have created an Irish theatre culture that is immensely strong. And really, we punch way above our weight when it comes to theatre and performance. All around the world, we're very well known for it. On the MA programs every year, it's nearly 50-50 between Irish students and international students, because I think that reputation for Irish theatre just exists. But the archive is part of that. So getting in, getting your hands dirty with a few dusty owl documents, reading the minute books from when the Abbey Theatre formed, from Yeats, the fights at the meetings, all the good gossip stuff. And also, but just seeing, you know, the costumes, the sets, the early filmed recordings, hearing the stage managers fight in the background, you know, giving you the sense of how things worked. And that will help you decide how you want to do things yourself. So it's important that we have those resources. And so we have archives. We just launched the Mockness archive recently, and Mockness, of course, have their main headquarters on campus as well. We've digitised the Gate Theatre Archive, the Abbey Archive, as I've already mentioned, also the Siobhan McKenna Archive, the Galway Arts Festival Archive, and multiple different archives, which become a really important point of research and I think also inspiration as you progress through the year of study. And this is the staff. So we have Emma and Aoife, the heroes, the administrators. We all sort of bow down to them and they run things. Myself, I oversee postgraduate programs. Professor Patrick Lonergan, who's the head of discipline. Dr. Charlotte McIver, who's the deputy head of school. Dr. Maireadny Chronin, who's our Druid artist in residence. And she is also the founder and co-director of Moonfish Theatre Company and a former director of the Galway Theatre Festival. Marianne Ichneda, head of production and curation, and Dr. Ian Walsh, who's also very much involved in community circus, Galway Community Circus, and leading the implementation of the first university modules in circus, which is really interesting and exciting. So the MA programs we offer, there's different pathways, and then there's core modules for each pathway, and then there's a range of optional modules. So the MA in Drama and Theatre Studies, I suppose, is the most flexible of them all. You would do one core module called Critical Methods, which actually everyone does on every MA program in drama, because it gives you the overview of really 20th century and 21st century theatre and performance. So you would study popular performance, digital performance, political performance, intercultural performance. So just giving you a sense of the kind of trends and ideas that dominate the major movements in theatre and performance in the last 100 years. So it's sort of a review course because some people maybe have been out of education for 5 to 10 years. Some people have a background in literature or politics. We've even had chefs and doctors sign up. So some people's backgrounds aren't theatre specific, and this brings everyone into the same page to an extent, and that's really important. So that would be one core module that everyone does. But aside from that, if you're doing the MA in Drama and Theatre, you can then choose all the other modules. And it's 3 modules a semester. So 3 modules from September to December, 3 modules from January to April, the start of May, and then in the summer there's a dissertation. So it's a 12-month program. And the MA in Drama and Theatre Studies, you can do part-time. So you could do that over 2 years if you wished. Then the other programs are all full-time only. So the MA in Theatre Practice and Production. So obviously there the focus more is on making work and how do you make work. So you would do core modules, the Critical Methods one, and then in the first semester you'd also do a core module in ensemble performance, and then you would choose an optional module. Then in the spring semester, you would do a core module in Performance Lab, focusing on how you create your own piece of work, devising your own piece of work. You do a core module in Fieldwork and Theatre Business. So that'll be everything from managing your CV, writing a grant proposal, to completing an internship with a professional company. And then you would choose another module. And then in the summer, you'd also do the dissertation. But the dissertation can be practice-based. So while there will be, you know, a significant written component, it can also be project-led, and again, about the creation of work. And usually what people do is they've started an idea throughout the semester, maybe for a bit of project work in ensemble or project work in Performance Lab, and then they build on it into the dissertation. So it's not that you're constantly having to come up with new things. You can have 1 or 2 key ideas which you build on and test in different ways throughout the year. Then the MA in Playwriting and Dramaturgy, you do your core module first semester, Critical Methods, like everyone else, and Playwriting 1. And then the second semester, you do the core module Playwriting 2 and Applied Dramaturgy. And then in the summer, you do a playwriting portfolio, and you would work with a professional playwright as well as an academic supervisor. And then we've the MA in Irish Theatre, History and Archives, and that'd be, you know, largely seminar focused. And you do your core module in Critical Methods and Irish Theatre. And then in the spring semester, you do Irish Theatre 2, and you do an archival work placement. And then this summer you do your dissertation as well. Very often then, people who finish the MA come back in a year or 2 and say, actually, I'd like to do a PhD, which we'd welcome. And obviously getting the funding to do it's important, and that can be a competitive process. But as we prepare you to do the dissertation in the summer, we encourage you to think about the PhD as an option. So a lot of people who then decide to do a PhD have the first draft of their proposal by the end of the MA, because your dissertation will be sufficient in word count, certainly, to be a first draft of a PhD proposal. So you're kind of up and running if you decide you want to head on down that road later on. Now, just the speaker series in the Druid Academy, they're typically held once a week with some other special events as scheduled. So we release the schedule when we can, but of course it depends on productions and touring and who's in town. But generally we would send the MAs out to see plays together as a group, and then we would bring in the performers, the producers, the marketing managers for talks, like I mentioned earlier on. So trying to be connected to industry and what's being programmed and toured as much as possible. And then the O'Donoghue Centre. So this is where we're based on campus. It's a new building. We had a wonderful patron, Donna O'Donoghue, who sadly passed away last year. And he was the former treasurer for the Drama Soc, I think, in the 70s when Druid were up and running. And he was very generous, and we were able to build a state-of-the-art theatre building, 120 seats in the theatre, LED lighting, 3 studios, classroom, costume store, green room, workshop for building sets. It's beautiful. We love it. And so that's where you'd be based. And of course, we have people come and showcase their work with us. So these are just some of our partners, people who have performed in the building and regularly use it. I should have said we also have a really important partnership with Babro, the International Arts Festival for Children. A lot of people are interested in theatre for children, for young audiences, or theatre in school settings, running workshops in primary and secondary school. And we would have a module in applied theatre where we would focus on how you'd go about that. And again, then there can be internships with Babro as well. And so that's just another important partnership that becomes part of the life of the building and the MA programme as you move through it. Here's a few pictures of the building. This is the O'Donoghue Centre. So it's lovely. It's lovely to go to a theatre space that has been designed to support theatre. I think it won the People's Choice Architecture Award in 2017. And it's good for the Our Party, pandemic permitting, if we're allowed to have them. Facilities. So this is the official info on it. First and only 100% LED equipped theatre, fully accessible. I should have said that. So fully accessible for wheelchair users, which is really important. Very adaptable space. And we have the most amazing technical manager called Mike O'Halloran. And he also lectures in stagecraft. And not only that, he does master classes that are optional for all MA students. You don't have to do them, but we would encourage you to. So he does a master class in lighting, in sound, in video, and in production. The idea being that if you graduate with an MA in theatre, even if it's on archives or it's centered around teaching or centered around performance, that you should know how to go into a theatre and turn on the lights. You know, that you should be able to leave with those skills, that they're basic. And it just means you have more options in terms of jobs. Maybe you are a performer and you're between auditions, but you could pick up some work as a stage manager, as a lighting assistant, you know, that you have other skill sets that can keep you working in the industry, regardless of what stage you're at in your own ambition and objectives. And so that's really important. So just the technical workshops there, I said they're not assessed, but they're optional. And it's, you know, it's important to have different sets of skills, I think. We also started an alumni network, and this is a great thing. Just being incredibly bored and frustrated during lockdown, like many people, we did a social media call to all our past students and said, hey, we miss you. We're incredibly bored. And when COVID's over, we want to have a really big party. And so everyone said, yeah, so do we. But it's become something more formal than that since, where we're now connecting people. So let's say here's a picture of some of our fourth years. They're nervous about graduating. It will be their first time out of structured education. They don't know how to begin thinking about their careers. Someone's interested in working as a production manager. Someone's interested in being a designer. Someone's interested in being a teacher. And so we go to the alumni network. We say, who's working in this area or a cognate area? And we hook them up over email, and then they can go for a coffee. And just a bit of informal mentorship and to make people feel less alone. And because we've only started it since lockdown, we haven't been able to bring everyone in and have a big reunion, which we will do when we can. But what we are doing is just publicizing people's shows, alumni shows, doing the mentorship and the networking, letting them know about job interviews or job opportunities. And then when we have extra theatre tickets, which we sometimes do, we'll raffle them off to our alumni as well. So it's been a lovely community thing that just sort of happened randomly and is now becoming something quite formal and quite important. And a lot of people are now working around the world. So we have 127 members, 20% are around the world, and the rest are in Ireland. So it's a lovely group to become part of, I think. Now, questions. I might bring that down. And would anyone like to ask anything? Because I've been rabbiting on there for half an hour. Or just say hello. Do you know what I'll do? I'll stop recording, and then if anyone wants to have a bit of a chat, they're more than welcome to. So I'll stop sharing. And now I'm going